The year was 2150, and Earth was living in a time of peace like never before. Technology had advanced beyond anyone's wildest dreams. Humanity had conquered diseases, eliminated hunger, and even started to colonize nearby planets. The cities were thriving, and people lived without fear. It seemed like the world had reached a golden age, and the future was bright. But little did they know, this peace was about to be shattered by something no one could have imagined. It all started with a strange signal. At first, it was dismissed as nothing more than interference. Scientists at Earth's leading communication stations noticed an unusual pattern in deep space transmissions, but they thought it was just a glitch in the system. The signal was weak, faint, and seemed to originate from a distant region of space, too far for anyone to really understand. But there was something about it that felt wrong. No one could explain it. But Shaw, the head of Earth's defense network, felt uneasy. Shaw was not one to panic, but he had always trusted his instincts. He spent hours reviewing the signal with his top advisors and military experts, trying to find something concrete. The more they analyzed it, the more it seemed like a deliberate message, not just random noise. The alien language, though unknown, was strangely structured. It was as though they were trying to communicate, but the translation was too complex to decipher quickly. But then something happened that no one could have predicted. Just as Shaw and his team began to suspect this was no ordinary signal, a massive shadow appeared in the sky above Earth. The moment it arrived, the skies turned dark, as if an eclipse had occurred. The moon was suddenly obscured, and before anyone could comprehend what was happening, an enormous ship emerged from the atmosphere. At first, the military considered this to be a possible advanced human weapon that had been secretly developed. But as the ship descended, it became clear that this was no human technology. The ship was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. It was colossal, its sleek metal surface shimmering with energy, and it emitted a low, pulsating hum that seemed to vibrate through the very air. The world was on high alert. Governments scrambled to respond, but nothing could have prepared them for what followed. A second ship appeared, then a third, and then hundreds more. They filled the sky, casting a shadow over every continent. The massive fleet of alien ships positioned themselves strategically, blocking the sun in many regions and causing mass panic on the ground. People looked up in awe and fear. No one had ever seen such power, such an advanced force, not even in their worst nightmares. Shaw, now leading the world's defense, received a chilling message that would haunt him forever. The message was broadcast worldwide, directly into every communication device, from smartphones to televisions. "You are not alone," the voice said in a cold, foreign tone. "And you will not survive. You have 5 hours. Prepare for extinction." It wasn't just the words that struck fear into humanity. It was the confidence in them. The invaders weren't just threatening Earth. They were declaring that the planet was already doomed. 5 hours. That was all they gave humanity. Shaw immediately activated Earth's defense systems. Thousands of military jets and spacecraft were launched to engage the enemy, but they were powerless against the alien ships. The alien craft moved like they had been in battle for centuries. Their shields deflected human missiles with ease, and their weapons were devastatingly powerful. Entire cities were wiped out in seconds. New York, Paris, Tokyo, all fell in a matter of minutes. The alien ships unleashed devastating blasts, reducing Earth's most powerful cities to ashes. Panic spread like wildfire, and chaos took hold. Inside the command center, Shaw stood frozen for a moment, staring at the chaos unfolding on the screens. He couldn't believe it. Earth had never been in such a vulnerable position. They had weapons, they had technology, but none of it seemed to matter. They were facing an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. For the first time in his life, Shaw felt powerless. He had always believed that humanity could overcome any challenge. But this was different. His mind raced. 5 hours, that was all they had. He knew that the fate of humanity rested in his hands. He turned to his team, who were already working frantically to understand the alien ship's weaknesses. His heart pounded in his chest as he tried to stay calm, but the reality of the situation was sinking in fast. Earth's defenses were no match for the aliens. The cities were burning, the skies were filled with hostile ships, and humanity was on the brink of extinction. "Get me everything we have on their technology," Shaw commanded, his voice steady but urgent. "We need to find a way to fight back, and we need to do it fast." The team scrambled to gather data from Earth's surviving satellites, space stations, and military units. But there was no clear answer. The alien ships seemed invincible. Nothing they tried worked. Their weapons were too powerful. Their shields were too strong. It seemed as though Earth's final hour had come. As Shaw stared out of the window of the command center, watching the skies fill with the alien fleet, he knew one thing for sure: this battle would change everything. The future of humanity, the future of Earth, would be decided in the next 5 hours. Whatever happened next, this was going to be the fight of their lives. But Shaw wasn't ready to give up yet. He couldn't afford to. There had to be something they could do. There had to be a way to fight back. But the clock was ticking, and humanity's survival depended on finding that way, before time ran out. The minutes ticked by as the world watched in disbelief. The alien fleet loomed above Earth, casting shadows over every city. It wasn't just the size of the ships that terrified humanity. It was the sheer precision and power of the alien assault. Each ship seemed to know exactly where to strike, causing massive destruction with surgical precision. Entire regions were wiped off the map, and Earth's most powerful military forces, including space stations and orbital defenses, were quickly neutralized. Shaw and his team sat at the heart of Earth's command center, their eyes fixed on the displays in front of them. Despite the dire situation, Shaw refused to panic. He had trained for moments like this, but nothing in his career had prepared him for an enemy like this. He had always known that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to adapt and fight back. But against this alien threat, it was clear that Earth was outmatched. "Status report," Shaw demanded, his voice sharp but calm. Dr. Helen Mercer, the lead scientist working on Earth's defense technologies, looked up from her console. "We're losing ground fast. Their weapons, whatever they're using, are unlike anything we've ever seen. Our best missiles barely scratched their shields." Shaw's mind raced. They needed something more than just traditional weaponry. They needed an advantage, something the aliens didn't expect. But what? Earth's best minds were scrambling to find a weakness, but so far, all their efforts had failed. Then, out of nowhere, the answer came. It wasn't from one of Earth's scientists or military strategists. It came from an unexpected source. A young engineer named Lucas, who had been working on the power grid for the command center, had a wild theory. "Sir," Lucas said hesitantly, "what if we've been looking at this the wrong way? What if the alien ships aren't just using advanced shields and weapons, but energy? Maybe the ships themselves are powered by something beyond our understanding, something that could be used against them." Shaw's mind began to click into place. Could it be possible? Could the aliens be using a form of energy that, if disrupted, might take down their entire fleet? But how would they even begin to study this in such a short amount of time? "We need to know everything we can about their energy sources," Shaw said, looking directly at Dr. Mercer. "You need to find a way to identify what powers their ships." Mercer didn't hesitate. "We're already trying to analyze their emissions, but they're using frequencies that are beyond our current technology." However, she paused for a moment, an idea forming. "If we can tap into their communication systems, we might be able to figure out how their ships are powered." Shaw nodded. "Do it. We don't have much time." With their options running out, the team set to work. Shaw watched as the engineers and scientists worked together, pulling apart the alien data they had collected in the last few hours. Every minute that passed felt like an eternity. Outside, Earth continued to burn. Cities were falling. Millions of people were dying. But inside the command center, Shaw's team remained focused. The next few hours would decide the fate of the entire planet. The breakthrough came when Mercer's team managed to decrypt a small portion of the alien communication. It wasn't much, just a fragment of data that seemed to describe a type of energy signature that the alien ships emitted. The data wasn't complete, but it was enough. Shaw could see it in Mercer's eyes. The glimmer of hope. "This is it," she said, her voice filled with a mix of relief and excitement. "This energy source, it's not unlike our own, but it's much more efficient. If we can disrupt it, we could cause their ships to malfunction. They might not be able to fight back." Shaw looked at the data, trying to piece together how they could use this information. "How long do we have?" Mercer didn't look up. "Maybe a few hours, but we'll need to adapt our technology quickly. We'll have to create a weapon that targets their energy core directly." It was risky, but it was the only plan they had. Shaw made the decision instantly. "Prepare everything. We're launching a counterattack. Make sure it works, and make sure it works fast." The team worked in overdrive, designing a device that could target the alien ship's energy cores. It wasn't perfect, but it was their best shot. As time slipped away, Shaw's mind stayed sharp, focused on the task at hand. But he couldn't help but feel the weight of what was happening. Earth's fate hung by a thread, and even with this new weapon, victory was far from certain. With the clock ticking, the team prepared their plan. The weapon would be deployed from the last remaining military vessels capable of reaching the alien fleet. The challenge now was to get it close enough to one of the alien ships without being destroyed. It was going to take all of humanity's skill, courage, and determination to make this work. Shaw stood before the team, giving them one last order. "This is it. We have one chance. We may not get another. Whatever happens, we've done everything we can. Now, it's up to you." Mercer and the others nodded. There was no time for fear, no time for doubt. They had to fight. They had to win. The alien threat was real, and Earth was facing extinction. But Shaw's team was ready. They were ready to take the fight to the invaders, and for the first time in hours, Shaw felt a flicker of hope. "We will not go down without a fight," Shaw said, his voice steady. "Humanity's last stand begins now." As the remaining ships launched into the sky, carrying the weapon that could turn the tide of battle, Earth held its breath. Would it work? Could they disrupt the alien fleet's power? The next few minutes would determine everything. The fight for Earth was just beginning, and humanity had one chance to prove they were not ready to give up. As the clock continued to tick down, the urgency in the air became palpable. Shaw and his team watched anxiously as the last remaining human forces launched into space. Earth's atmosphere was no longer safe. The alien fleet had taken control of the skies, and humanity's only hope was a desperate gamble. The new weapon was still in its early stages, a hastily assembled device designed to target the mysterious energy core of the alien ships. It was small, only the size of a torpedo, but it held the potential to cripple the entire alien fleet if it worked. The human forces were now on their way to deliver it, but the path ahead was treacherous. Every ship that rose into space was met with an onslaught from the invaders. The alien forces were relentless, their weapons tearing through human ships with terrifying precision. Inside the command center, Shaw's team was holding their breath. Every few minutes, updates came in, some hopeful, others grim. One by one, Earth's remaining military ships were being destroyed, yet the weapon remained their only chance of survival. The team had calculated that the device needed to hit the core of an alien ship at just the right angle to unleash a cascading shockwave that would overload their energy system. The problem was, the aliens were becoming more aware of the threat. Their ships were shifting positions, making it harder to target the vulnerable cores. If the weapon didn't hit its mark, the chances of humanity surviving this attack would be slim to none. Shaw paced back and forth, watching as the remaining ships engaged in dogfights with the alien fleet. The humans were outgunned, but their pilots fought with a ferocity that only desperation could inspire. Shaw could see the burning pride in their eyes. They were fighting not just for survival, but for the future of Earth itself. "Commander Shaw," Mercer called, her voice cutting through the tension. "We've decrypted more of the alien communications. They know we're trying something. They're adjusting their defenses to prevent us from getting close." Shaw's stomach tightened. This was it, the final push. "Then we hit them where they least expect it," he said with resolve. "Prepare to launch the device. It's now or never." The weapons officer, a sharp-eyed officer named Lieutenant Sarah Brooks, spoke up. "We're ready, but we're going to need a direct hit. There's no room for error." Shaw nodded, his mind racing. They had one shot, and only minutes to make it work. He looked at the live feed from the remaining ships, their final assault against the aliens underway. The skies above Earth were now full of light and fire, missiles, explosions, and the final attempts to hold back the alien invasion. But Shaw knew that the true battle wasn't in the skies anymore. It was in the heart of the alien fleet. The weapon was deployed. As the torpedo shot out of the human spacecraft, a massive explosion erupted in the distance. The weapon was fired with such precision that, for a moment, Shaw thought it might actually miss. The alien ships had anticipated the move, and their defensive shields were adjusting. But just when it seemed like all hope was lost, a surge of energy from the torpedo's core blasted through the aliens' defensive systems. The weapon collided with the alien flagship, a colossal ship that seemed to command the entire fleet. Shaw's eyes widened as the shockwave rippled outward. The alien flagship shuddered, then flickered, its lights dimming. Then, in an instant, the entire ship exploded in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave that followed hit the surrounding ships, sending ripples through the alien fleet. For a moment, everything went quiet. The remaining alien ships immediately lost their coordination. They drifted in space like lost ships without direction, as their command ship had been destroyed. The once impenetrable shields around the alien fleet began to falter, their energy reserves unstable. The aliens had no leadership now, and their coordinated attack started to crumble. But the war was far from over. The destruction of the flagship had crippled their command, but the alien ships were still formidable. Their weapons were still powerful, and humanity was running on fumes. The remaining human forces engaged in the final battle, their weapons now finding purchase in the weakened shields of the alien ships. Shaw knew that their victory wasn't certain yet. The alien fleet was still formidable, and if they didn't finish this fight quickly, the aliens might regroup. He needed a plan, a final strike to finish this once and for all. Inside the command center, Shaw called for all remaining military units to converge on the remaining alien ships. They had to move fast. He knew that Earth's survival depended on their ability to seize this moment. If the aliens could retreat or regroup, they would find new ways to destroy Earth. Humanity had one chance to take advantage of the chaos, and they couldn't afford to lose it. Shaw's voice was steady as he gave the order. "Everyone, engage. This is our final stand. We fight until the last breath. No retreat. We win or we die here." The final battle was like a thunderstorm in space. Explosions erupted in every direction as the humans pushed forward, using every weapon they had left. Each strike seemed like it would be their last, but Shaw's forces fought with everything they had. They fought for their families, for their homes, and for the planet they loved. Then something incredible happened. The aliens, sensing the change in the tide, attempted a retreat. But it was too late. Humanity had struck with everything they had left. With the flagship destroyed, the alien fleet was in disarray, their ships failing to organize against the determined human assault. The final few alien ships that remained were overwhelmed, their defenses no longer able to withstand the human onslaught. Minutes later, the last alien vessel was taken down, its massive form crashing into the surface of Earth's moon. For a moment, everything was still. The sky, once filled with enemy ships, was now clear. The battle had been won. But the cost had been high. Earth had been scarred. Cities lay in ruins, and millions of lives were lost. But in that moment, humanity had survived. Against all odds, Earth had won. And as Shaw stood before his team, watching the last of the alien ships burn in the distance, he allowed himself a brief moment of relief. The impossible had been done. The battle had changed everything. Humanity had proven its strength, and for the first time in history, Earth had stood united against a force beyond imagination. But this victory, however sweet, would forever remind them that their place in the universe was no longer as secure as they once believed. The fight for survival was over, but the scars it left would last forever. As humanity looked to the future, the weight of the past battle still hung heavily in the air. The scars of war were etched into the land, the cities, and the people. But despite the overwhelming loss, there was an undeniable sense of hope. The survivors had witnessed something incredible: humanity's indomitable will to fight back, to push through the impossible. And now, Earth was beginning the long road to recovery. Shaw stood at the window of the newly constructed Earth Command Center, gazing out at the horizon. It was a strange sight, one he had never imagined seeing in his lifetime. The sky was clear, but there was a heaviness in the air, as if the planet itself was still reeling from the onslaught. The alien ships had been destroyed, their wreckage scattered across the void of space. But the true cost of the battle was far greater than the fallen invaders. Earth had been changed forever. Behind Shaw, Mercer entered the room, her face tired but determined. "We've started reverse engineering their technology," she said, her voice carrying the gravity of the task ahead. "It's slow, but we've made significant progress in understanding how their energy cores work. We could create weapons far more advanced than anything we've ever seen. But I need to ask you something." Shaw turned, meeting her gaze. "What is it?" Mercer hesitated, her eyes shifting toward the display, showing the blueprints of the alien technology. "What do we do with all of this? We're sitting on a goldmine of tech that could elevate humanity to the stars. But it's not just weapons. Some of this could lead to breakthroughs in medicine, energy, and space travel. If we harness this correctly, we could advance by centuries in a matter of years. But there's a danger too." Shaw knew exactly what she meant. The same technology that had almost wiped them out could also be used to create even greater weapons, perhaps ones far more powerful than the ones the aliens had unleashed. It was a double-edged sword. If humanity didn't tread carefully, it could destroy them just as quickly as it had given them a second chance. "We'll be careful," Shaw replied, his voice steady, though his mind was racing. "We'll use this knowledge, but we won't let it consume us. We need to rebuild first, get the world back on its feet. Only once we're strong enough can we begin to think about how to protect ourselves, how to explore the stars without risking everything." Mercer nodded, clearly relieved by his response. She had worked with Shaw long enough to know that his leadership wasn't just about military might. It was about balance, about knowing when to fight and when to retreat, when to use power and when to hold back. Outside, the world was beginning to heal. The first signs of recovery were visible in the cities that had survived the alien onslaught. Teams of engineers and architects, some of them volunteers from every corner of the earth, had come together to rebuild the infrastructure. What had once been a sprawling metropolis lay in ruins, but now, piece by piece, it was being restored. The new world that was emerging was one built on unity, a far cry from the fractured earth that had existed before the invasion. But recovery was never as simple as rebuilding buildings or repairing roads. Shaw knew that true recovery would take much longer. It was about restoring people's hope. It was about rebuilding trust. The human race had been tested in ways it had never been tested before, and now it was up to the leaders of the world to guide them toward a future that wasn't just about survival, but about thriving. Months passed, and humanity's resilience continued to shine through. Scientists and engineers worked side by side to repair damaged satellites, re-establish communication networks, and rebuild Earth's defenses. Earth's space fleet had been decimated, but humanity wasn't starting from scratch. Shaw had made it a priority to ensure that Earth's remaining military forces were integrated with the technological advances gleaned from the alien ships. A new generation of weapons, ships, and systems began to take shape. Meanwhile, the United Nations had been reformed, though it was no longer the same fractured system it had been before. The war had united humanity in a way nothing else had. Borders, old rivalries, and conflicts were now secondary to the need to rebuild the planet and prepare for whatever the future held. Earth wasn't just rebuilding its cities and technology. It was rebuilding its very identity as a species. Shaw found himself more involved in politics than he had ever expected. His name had become synonymous with the battle for survival, and now his voice carried weight. But he was careful. He was the leader that humanity needed, but not the kind of leader who would rush to make decisions without consulting others. The first challenge came when the new Earth Defense Coalition was formed, a global alliance of military, scientific, and technological minds who would work together to protect Earth from any future threats. Shaw was appointed as its leader, but his role wasn't just about defense. It was about unity. Earth's future would depend on its ability to not only fight back, but to work together in a way that had never been done before. It was around this time that humanity's gaze turned outward. The alien invasion had proven one thing with undeniable clarity. Earth was no longer alone in the universe. The stars weren't just distant points of light. They were potential threats, or perhaps allies. Shaw found himself looking toward the stars with a new sense of purpose. The universe had opened its doors, and humanity was standing at the threshold. A new space exploration program was launched, one that aimed to use the alien technology to propel humanity further than it had ever imagined. Shaw knew that Earth's survival would depend not just on defense, but on understanding the universe and its dangers. They couldn't afford to wait for another invasion to push them to action. "We've won the battle," Shaw said in a speech broadcast to the world. "But the war for Earth's future is only just beginning. We stand on the brink of something incredible. We've proven that we can fight, that we can survive against impossible odds. Now, we need to prove that we can thrive. The future is uncertain, yes, but it is ours to shape." Shaw's words resonated across the planet. People, tired and broken, began to find their strength again. They had survived, and now they would build. Earth had faced extinction and survived. It had faced the unimaginable and won. And now, humanity stood poised for something greater, not just survival, but exploration, discovery, and growth. The battle had changed everything. But in that change, Earth had found a new purpose, a new direction. Humanity had proven one thing beyond a doubt. They were not just survivors. They were conquerors. And the universe would soon know their name.